Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke. I'm so glad you're here. This is a platform bringing you the most up-to-date, groundbreaking information from some of the best minds within the natural products industry, as well as many voices outside the industry, all of them with incredible messages, stories to share, because everybody has something to teach and something to pass on to all of us. If you like what I'm doing, please consider giving me a like, share, or subscribe. Better yet, do all three. You can find our podcast episodes wherever you listen, as well as on my YouTube channel. My guest today is Kimberly Hand, and as you see from the description of the program, she's incredible, and you're going to really walk away with great information today. So I'm very excited about this. I've been excited all week. Help me welcome my guest. Hey, Kimberly, how are you?
Hi, Dr. Burke. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I have such an amazing respect for you, and I think that what you are doing out there and passing on information that's so useful, and I know a lot of your focus is on women and women's health, but I think a lot of these principles could be applied to maybe some of us guys as well, because I think a lot of it is focus and also being able to treat ourselves with a little bit more respect and more priority, which I think is important. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your podcast. I think what you're doing is incredible. So let's share it.
Yeah, let's do it. And our podcast that we recorded together is out this week. So
Wonderful.
Everyone has to come and listen to you on the Cinnamon Effect. We had a lot of fun connected. You have got such great energy. So I was so happy to sit down with you and learn from somebody who's been in the industry for so long, 40 years, right?
Longer. But yes, a very long time, more than I want to admit to, but thank you for that.
Yeah, so the Cinnamon Effect really came out of a time in my life where I was in my early 40s. I had a baby. Was going through these health issues, and I thought, wow, I've been on such a journey. This was from a complicated pregnancy to a traumatic birth experience to the aftermath of all of that. And what I learned was I was putting a lot of time, energy, and intention into figuring out why I wasn't feeling good. I think a lot of it was, or I know a lot of it was, emotional component to what had happened. I was actively suffering from PTSD. I was also having, some health issues that probably some of them had been around a long time, but I just didn't know. I was dealing with autoimmune and all of these things that I have now found from doing this podcast are very common especially with women. So I thought, here I've been on this journey, and it would be great for me to share what I've learned and just kind of open this up to an audience. And when I started, I didn't really know where it was going to go. I didn't know if I was going to like podcasting, if I was going to be good at it. There were so many unknowns. But what I found was that I really have loved connecting with women and sharing my story, and then in turn hearing their stories and just bringing to the show what I think is helpful on my own path. And I think if it's helpful to me, it's going to be helpful for somebody else. And so that's been my main goal of the Cinnamon Effect. Now, the name, when I came up with it, I wasn't thinking, oh, it's 5 pillars and this is what they are. Not in the beginning. This took a little bit of time. And as I went on, I thought, the Cinnamon Effect really is my path to greater wellness. And what did that look like for me? It was a lot of different components. It was, treating my body properly with the right supplements and hydration and sleep and doing all of these things, exercising. But it was also these other components that are maybe not as obvious to people. And so I came up with the 5 pillars of the Cinnamon Effect, which are clarity, connection, confidence, creativity, and calm. And so, to do anything and to implement anything, you have to get clarity first, right? So I started decluttering my physical space. Started decluttering my mental space and really breaking down what was no longer serving me and really ushering it out of my life, getting rid of it. And that was the first step. And I think sometimes when we feel really overwhelmed and maybe we aren't feeling good, that is a giant first step, getting clear on how we do want to feel, what are our goals, what do we want to do in the future. It feels very overwhelming. So that's like a big phase 1 of the process. Phase 2 was, okay, I'm getting clear of what I want and how I want to feel. And now, so I'm connecting with myself. It's connection. I'm connecting with myself. I'm showing myself more self-love. I'm spending more time on the things that I want to do. I'm investing in myself. But it's also connection with others and building your community and finding other women maybe you can relate to, and getting out there and doing things that light you up and finding other people that are doing the same thing, and kind of building those friendships and those relationships from there. Confidence was the next thing. Okay, you've been down and out, you're building yourself back up, and how are you building that confidence within yourself? Well, for me, what I realized, I've always kind of been a shy person, believe it or not. And to build confidence in myself, I like to do things that scare me. And I like to put myself out there, just like this podcast. And, one of the things I did recently, which you may like, is I went python hunting in the Everglades. It was scary as hell, Dr. Burke, but I did it. I grabbed a 12-foot python by the neck, choked on it, and held it up. And it was like such an empowering moment of, if I can grab a snake by the neck and I did it, what are these other scary things that I could do? Right? Everything else seems so much less scary, I guess is how I want to put it, right? You grab the snake by the neck and now you can pretty much do anything. And then the last 2 pillars are creativity and calm. And creativity is so important. It's been important for me having a show and being creative. I know you have experience with that, and it's such an outlet to be able to just explore different avenues of things that you love. And so entrepreneurship has been a big portion of that for me as well. Super creative in creating different products and things like that. That's kind of on the horizon for me. And then calm, and savoring that calm through meditation and a solid routine, a solid morning routine, and really cultivating the things that calm my nervous system and make me feel good, and where I can really clear my mind and, show up in the world, share my light with the world and show up the way I want to. So that is the cinnamon effect.
And you said something that was a couple things that really touched me. The first one is having the confidence to do the things you want to do. I talk to people all over the country because I travel 2 or 3 weeks a month. And people tell me all the time they have these ideas, they have these things they're passionate about, but they don't have the confidence to step outside their comfort zone. And I know that is huge, because once you do grab a python by the neck or reach out there and just do something you've been fearful of, it is amazing how your mind all of a sudden opens up and says, wow, like you said, if I can do this, what else can I do? And I
Yes.
love that. And I think that's so important. And the other one is calm. I think people are afraid to take downtime. I think they're afraid to take reflective time and rejuvenative time and take the time they need to recharge the batteries, because they're in our heads. And I'm guilty. We get in our heads so much that we don't afford ourselves the downtime that we really, really need to reset and refocus. So I'm so glad that's part of this, because your 5 pillars are beautiful and they can apply to everyone, and they allow everybody to be able to have a more fulfilled, a more positive, a more beneficial, and a more personally reflective lifestyle. So I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we are all worthy of that rest and that
Mhm.
downtime. And I know for myself, I'm a chronic overdoer at times.
Mhm.
And I really have to step out of that and say, you know what? It's okay if I do nothing today. If I don't do anything productive, that is okay. I need to rest. I need to relax. And sometimes you need to just devote time to wasting time, just doing whatever the heck you want to do in that day, whether it's 8 hours of Netflix or it's taking a nap or it's whatever you want it to be. So this summer, I actually did a little bit more of that because my husband and my son were in a fishing tournament and they were fishing a lot. So the guy time, I fished with them occasionally, but I let them really have their bonding time.
It's
So I
wonderful.
found myself with more time on my hands than I've had in a while. And, some days it was like, okay, I've got to get these things done and be productive. But some days it was the only thing I'm really going to do is I'm going to try and go catch the sunrise at the beach. And then whatever plays out for the rest of the day happens. I'm not going to try and control it. I'm going to do what I feel like doing. So,
Wow. I love that, and we don't afford ourselves the time that we need. And, I have a lot of animals. I have a lot of horses, a lot of dogs, and I miss them when I'm on the road. And when I get back, for me, a grounding was like hugging my horse and feeling the energy go all the way to my feet, or spending time with the dogs and stuff. My animals are very important to me, and being on the road is hard. But I know they're
yes.
in great hands when I'm gone, so that's wonderful. But that regrounding focus time, and I agree with you. Once in a while, I get up, I got back from a trip, and I'm like, I'm doing nothing today. I am going
Yeah.
to decompress and do things that I don't have to think about a lot, binge watch a series on Netflix or whatever, and, just kind of take a step back from me and get out of my own head. Because I think some of us that have a tendency to really push ourselves hard, we get in our heads. And then it's hard to get out of there. And then when we do get out of there, we feel guilty about getting out of there. So we have to learn how to balance the guilt. And that's a process.
Yes. Yes, don't guilt yourself. I've done
Mhm.
plenty of that, believe me,
Mhm.
guilting myself
Agreed.
for not being productive, not do go 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 do. And a lot of moms do that. A lot of people do that, but I think moms in general really have a tough time because they think they always need to be devoting their energy to their husband or, their partner or their child and really where's that break time for them?
I did a lecture a couple years ago, and it was a moms group. It was quite big. It was in Los Angeles. There were about 1,100 moms there,
Wow.
and we were sitting in the audience, and I asked all of them to stand up, and I said, "How many of you allow yourselves like an hour of personal time every day?" And they all stood. And I said, "How about 2 hours of personal time during the day?" And like half the crowd sat down. And I said, "How
Mhm.
many of you give yourself like a 2 to 3 hour window of me time every single day after you've done everything else?" And by the time it was done, there was three people standing.
Yeah.
And that was how little. And I said, "Now look around. How many of you have maybe forgotten that your time is very important and you do not have to be on 24 hours a day. You need the me time to be better at the other time that you're doing." And I think it resonated because by the end of it, it was just, there was a much better kind of feeling in the room. And the people were standing up saying, I'm guilty. I'm guilty of this. I guilt myself into not doing me time. I don't get my hair cut as often. I haven't done a facial in 2 years. I don't go to the gym anymore. I just walk around the house. That's my exercise. And I'm like, who's telling you to do that? And they were just
Yeah.
all like, no, it's just me in my own head. And I think it was one of those things where I agree with you. Moms, they're so hard on themselves and they have an
So
amazing job of what they do, but me time will make them better at their family time.
absolutely. Absolutely. The connection part that I mentioned before was
Mhm.
I went a couple years ago, I decided I was going to take a 1 week trip by myself. And I ended up going to a yoga retreat in the mountains of Montana. I didn't know anybody. I traveled alone to get there. It was it kind of in the middle of nowhere and there wasn't a lot of like I wasn't sure if I was going to be talking to people, not talking to people, kind of being by myself. I had no idea what the future was going to hold. I
It was
ended up
the
getting a
unknown.
flat
It was very
tire.
unknown.
Very unknown, very unknown. But I gave myself that week. I gave my husband literally no instructions of what to do. I kind of just left him on his own. And which now he was like, that was so good for him because he needed to figure it out. He needed to figure out all the things that I do that maybe I didn't explain to him. He just had to figure it out on his own. So I did this week-long trip. It was so amazing. I came back completely, my cup was completely filled. I felt energized. I felt clear, that clarity that I was so desiring of, I'm going to do, this is one of my goals. And, maybe this isn't working at home and I'm going to change it. I'm going to rework it and I'm going to, go into the future this way. This is how I want to show up. So there were so many things that just came to my head, but I needed to give myself that silence and I needed to give myself that time away. And a lot of people, since they've heard me talk about that trip, I've talked about it on my podcast, they were like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. I said, you are the only one that's telling you that you could never do that. You really
Exactly.
can do it. And you don't have to ask permission. You may think that you do, but you don't. You need to say, and even if it's one day, you can't take a week, it's one day. You need to take that time for yourself and reconnect with yourself, reconnect with your goals, reconnect with who you are. You deserve that time. So
I
it's
love
just so
that.
important.
Let me ask you a question. When you started the podcast, obviously it was an unknown situation once again. You weren't sure what you're going to get from it, what you're going to add to it, what was going to happen, how it was going to further move you and your body and your life and your energy. Was it healing for you?
Yes. Yes. I can even listen back to the first couple of episodes and my voice sounds different. And so I've talked about this a lot, like opening the throat chakra and letting your own unique voice come out. Now, of course, not everyone wants to start a podcast or be
No,
on the radio or be
no.
on TV, right? But I think that can come out in other ways. I don't think it necessarily has to be through this medium. But for me in particular, it has expanded my life in so many amazing ways. First of all, talking to incredible, amazing people like yourself.
Thank you.
Also finding my own voice and finding that inner confidence, again, doing something that scares me because every time before I do a podcast, I always feel a little bit nervous, those like jitters of, how's this going to go? But that's so good to feel that. To me, that makes me feel like I'm alive. That I am doing something that lights me up, that invigorates me. It's getting that energy moving, right? So the podcasting has really been an incredible journey. I've been doing it almost 2 years now, and I can't imagine not doing it. And it is a long game. It's a long game that if you want to play it, it'll continue on for a while. There's really no ending point. I don't know if you feel that way. Like it's kind of it could go on forever, as long as you want to put the time, energy, and intention into it. So I'm really loving it. And I feel very grateful that I found it at the time of my life that I did, because I think it really has expanded me and brought so much goodness into my life.
My grandmother used to always say, there are no coincidences. She said it all the time. And she
Yeah.
said, if something's meant to be and it's something that's supposed to come in your direction, it will. You may question how it got there or why it's knocking on your door, but, open it and embrace it because many times it's being sent for a reason. I know that's
Yes.
a little philosophical, but I don't care. I
I love it.
started in radio in the late 70s, early 80s. I did 42 years on the air, tens of thousands of radio shows. I started in my industry very, very young and helped to grow with the natural products industry and launch all these amazing things and technology and all these wonderful things. And I wouldn't change a thing. I love now that I'm able to have this, face-to-face camaraderie going on, because before it was you were either sitting at a studio by yourself or you're on the phone.
Yeah.
And to me, this is just so much better because I think when you have a guest and it's a guest that you're passionate about having on because you love what they're doing and they're adding so much. When you have the face to face, I think there's just such an amazing passion and mutual respect. And I think you bring the best of each other out. So I
Yes.
think that's important.
Yes, absolutely. I always think, if we have a mutual interest in the and one another's concepts or topics or whatever, it's going to be magical no matter what. There's going to be some positive energy conversation that comes out of it. And I love that. And here you're in Arizona, right? And
No, I'm in Las Vegas. I'm in Las
oh,
Vegas.
you're in Vegas. That's right. I'm in
Uh-huh.
Florida, and here,
Right.
we're connecting, and it's just so amazing.
It's very, very cool. And I'm so happy about what you're doing because it is a platform, and especially for women, I think that I think that women are I hate to say this, but I think women are a lot more appreciative of beneficial, useful information than men are, because women
Mm-hmm.
will admit where things like weaknesses or frustrations are, where we have a tendency to eat them and bury them deep and pound them down so we don't have to face them every single day. That's kind of a guy thing. But
Yeah.
I one thing I love is how women are able to verbally talk about situations and not be shy about it. And I think that's wonderful. I've interviewed so many women guests over the years, and it's been so invigorating and enlightening. And I think the audience walks away with, even if they take away one point, or in your case, one pillar, and they think to themselves, this one hit home. This is the one I need to focus on. And then I'm going to go to the next one and I'm going to start following in your footsteps. I think that many of them would probably say, someone that's talking my language that gets me, because
Yeah.
I think today we feel that maybe we're alone on these
Mhm.
roads and nobody else is going down them or has gone down them. But that wouldn't be farther from the truth, because I think a lot of people, especially with women, they've gone through amazing journeys. And if childbirth is part of that, and child rearing and raising a family and balancing a job, or even just all the home situation, there's so much there. And
Yes.
support can come in many different ways. So once again, I thank you for your platform.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we need to show each other as women that we are there for one another. And, some women are doing it almost alone. They don't have the family support, or they're a single parent, and that can work both ways. But I think with women, we need to build each other up and not tear each other down. And unfortunately, you do see on social media, and it's funny. I just will scroll through, and I'll see people say such hateful things about people that they don't even know. And it feels so tragic, because why are we doing that? Why are we doing that to other people? We need to show other people that we support them, and if we've gone through similar situations, show them that we've been there, and be empathetic. And so I feel like, on my show, I've shared very personal experiences. I shared about having a miscarriage. I felt like it was something that was not really talked about a lot, and what the aftermath of that was for me, physically and emotionally. There was so much there, and I thought, I was really nervous about putting it out there. I don't know if you ever feel this way, like, where
I
sometimes you'll
do.
be like, oh, should I have not said that? Or should I have not talked about that subject? And I did. I thought, should I have not said that? And I had a woman reach out to me saying that she had just experienced a miscarriage. She had not told anyone, only her husband had known about it. And she felt less alone by listening to my story. And I thought, you know what? That's that's all I needed. I needed to hear that it helped one person. And it doesn't matter if it helps anybody else, but it helped her. And so again, it just shows me how beautiful this experience has been for me. And just being able to show other women, like, I've walked through some heavy things, and we can still look at the bright side of life. I like to think, like, the cinnamon effect is that little sprinkle of something special on your life, and we can all do that. And it doesn't have to cost money. It can be free. It can be the simple things, the very simple things: seeing the sunrise at the beach, doing one thing out of your comfort zone. Maybe that's one thing a month. Maybe it's one thing a year. You decide what's right for you. Um, but I'm just trying to lead by example with that. I try and do that in my own life. I had stage fright as a kid, like very intense stage fright, but then I went on to be an NFL cheerleader and perform at the stadiums full of, 60,000 people. And I was scared every single time. There wasn't not one time that I went out there where I wasn't scared, but I continued to do it. And I continued to show up and I continued to do something that really made me feel alive. So I'm doing that now, even though it's not football stadiums. It's different.
I call it fear-citement because I think it's an
Oh,
apprehension, but it's also an excitement at the same time.
I
And
love
we
that.
really like what we're doing, but we have that. I'm that way. If I'm getting ready to go on stage and I've got a big audience in front of me, I feel the butterflies before, but I've
Yeah.
learned how to, after 40 some years of doing it, I've learned how to say it's not nerves, it's excitement.
It's
You're
fear
just getting
excitement. I love that.
so I mean, I try to do that in my mind, and it's made it a lot easier for me and with many other people that I've kind of taken under my wing, to that are doing podcasts, doing radio shows, and many guests that I've walked through over the years. I just tell them, I said, remember, it's not fear, it's fear-citement. I said, you're
Yes.
bubbling under the surface, and once they get going, they're going. When they get done, they're like, wow, that was so fast. And I'm like, that's because your excitement kicked in. And I
Yes.
said, and remember that we all have something to share. For many years and decades on my radio show, I always had people within the natural products industry, almost
Mhm.
solely formulators, scientists, educators, the people that are making the natural products industry the best of the best. I was very blessed. And when I started the podcast, I said, I still want that. And I want many of my previous guests to come on and give me their points of view a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades later. Do they still feel the same or have they changed? But I
Mhm.
also opened the door to professional athletes, to entertainers, and to incredible people in the know that I've been following, that I think their messages, like yourself, is so vibrant and so exciting and so necessary. You have a lot to say, and I want that here. I want this to be that platform where people walk away and they're like, I pulled 3 things out of this conversation today, and I'm going to try those because
Mhm.
I'm there. She's talking about me. I have people all the time say, you personalize everything, and I said, I do. And I said, I point fun at myself all the time. I have no trouble with that. And they're like, you have no idea that many people feel the same way, but they're afraid to say it or even think it about themselves.
Yes.
So sometimes we're able to open up a door. Isn't that
Yes.
great?
Yes, it is great. It's a very special place to be. Who is your dream guest? I have to know. You must have one.
There's too many. And I think, I look at it this way. Somebody else asked me that on a show a couple weeks ago because I was a guest on another show. And they said, do you have a favorite guest? And I said, everyone I've ever spoken with,
Mm.
because every single person gave me something to think about, reminded me of something I've forgotten, or taught me something new. And
Mhm.
I think so for me, I think every guest is amazing. I don't think I could value. I may say there's shows that I walk away vibrating and very excited,
Yeah.
but then again, I'm excited after every show. I get
Yeah.
done and I'm like, that was good. There was a lot of message there. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of hard for me to pinpoint, but I've been very blessed to work with some of the most amazing people in the world. So I'm very blessed.
You have very great positive energy. So that trickles out to everyone that's listening to you. I love that.
Aw, thank you so much. This is a kind of a question that I have, because you kind of deliver your message and a lot of it is, maybe aimed or supportive for women. Do you feel that women of all ages can benefit from the advice? Is it more just moms, or how about younger women? Do you feel that some of them are already starting to attach themselves to some of these principles? Because I think that it would apply to everything all the way from 20 to 90.
Yes, I do think so. I think for me, it it came out of me in my
Mhm.
40s, but and I guess when I was an NFL cheerleader, I was 28. So I was doing things that I was really pushing myself to do. But I wished I would have really invested maybe more in myself. I was in bad relationships. I was working jobs that I hated. I was doing things, and maybe we all go through somewhat of a phase, because if you don't know what you don't like, you'll never know what you really love, right? So I always thought, I've tried a lot of things. I realize what I don't want to do, what I don't like. And that has, again, just brought me to the clarity portion. So I declutter that stuff and I move on. But I think if you can do that in your 20s and you can really focus in and have that intention and clarity, wow, how far would you be, by the time you're 40? And, I look at one thing that I did. I stopped drinking alcohol when I was 41. So almost 4 years ago. That was a big piece of the puzzle that I had strung along in my own life for a lot of years, feeling like it didn't serve me, but I was still doing it. And I wished I would have felt that I was worthy of quitting way back then. I wish that I felt that I didn't have to drink. I guess at some point I felt like in every social situation I had to have a drink in my hand. And whether that was programming or just what I was seeing or whatever it was, I wished I would have come to that realization earlier. Now, flash forward to present day, I feel so grateful that I'm at the place that I'm at and I'm alcohol free and I gave myself such an amazing gift. So to answer your question, yes, I do think women from 20 to 90 could do this. I had this weird thought on the way here that I thought, you know what? I may want to learn how to play the drums. And I don't know why I was listening to music and I heard like this like drum solo and I was like, yeah, but I might not be, it might not be now. I may be 60, 70, 80 years old when I decide to play the drums. But like, don't stop thinking that you could do something just because the time is not right or you think you're too old or whatever the case may be. I'm like, you know what? I may learn to play the drums one day. And I just kind of like put the thought out of my head and continue to drive.
Well, you probably filed it. It's
I
filed
filed
back
it.
here, and the file will keep coming to the front. You'll be like, okay, not yet. Goes back to the file, then it'll work its way back up again. But it was the
Yeah.
same thing for me. I mean, I was at the age, I thought to myself, you're at the age you really want to start a new podcast after decades of being on the radio. I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm not
Yeah.
done talking. I have a lot more to say and I have a lot more information to bring to listeners and bring all these wonderful minds and all these wonderful opinions and science and all this stuff where people can learn, because I think many times today everybody is in search of information. And I was I was talking to someone the other day and we were talking about some of the evangelists that are out there that are, giving the word of God and everything to huge stadiums. And you see all these hundreds of thousands of people there. And I think to myself, so many of us out there are looking for something, whether it's for religion in our life, whether it's for a mentor, whether it's for a teacher, an educator. And a lot of us, we're searching. And, we may not find it really quick. We may not have to go through a bunch of things to find it, but it's there. And we just have to stop thinking that we're too old or we've been a failure at these before. It's like dieting. How many diets have people gone on and been failures at it? But it doesn't mean you stop. It means you find the right one for you, so you continue your search. So to your point, I agree 100%.
Yeah. I think with what you're saying is the answers, whenever I've looked externally, it's never really given me the result that I wanted. And when I really started to tap into my intuition and my spirit and my beliefs and everything that was inside of me, I was like, okay, I don't ever have to look out here for any of it. It's everything I need is here. And it's very comforting to think that everything you need is right there within you and within your heart and your spirit. And so I just try to remind myself of that. It's not what Sally's doing over here. She may be able to guide me, but it's really what's within me. Do you want to play the drums or what is it that you want to do? So
Exactly. No, I think that's very true. And I think we don't utilize our own talent. I don't think we follow our own beliefs. I think, and this is kind of something that's almost a little bit sad, is I think as humans, we have a tendency to be looking more for approval than results. And sometimes it's important for us to be able to have that approval. And I'm fine with that. Everybody deserves pats on the back, but there's times you're not going to get it. And you have to reach behind and pat yourself on the back and
Yeah.
be a parade of one if you have to. And
Yeah.
realize that I saw this funny little meme. It was this little girl walking down the street playing the trumpet. No one else was there. And it was the homeschool band. She was the only one. She was the only
Aw.
one in the band because she was homeschooling. But it was just like she was smiling when she got done because she followed, her thought process and didn't
Yeah.
need anybody else at that point. And I thought to myself, that's where we need to be. We need to be less dependent on the opinions of others. We need to follow our own dreams, our own affirmations, our own goals, and realize that, oh, I love what you said. Everything you need is deep inside if you just reach in and utilize what you already have. We've learned so much, we forget all we've learned.
Yes.
So
Yes. And
I really
we
like
get
that.
very detached from our body. We get very detached, and you just got to bring it back to your body, feel grounded, breathe, nourish yourself, and I think like the answers will come, will come to you, and you'll figure it out.
Absolutely. So my question to you, is there a book in the works?
Interesting question. It was funny. I put out a journal. It's a very simple journal. It's gratitude, 3 things you're grateful for, and an affirmation for the day. And then the rest of it is just free writing. And when I put that out on social media, all these people wrote to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to read your book." And I said, "Oh, but it's not a book. It's a journal." I feel like it's maybe deep down in there. And I want to make sure I would never do anything just to do it. I feel like I want to make sure that it really has something powerful to say. And, but I'm flattered that you asked that. And I think yes, maybe in the future. Yes.
I love the idea of a book, The Cinnamon Effect, because I think that it gives you and basically tell people these are 5 pillars for a healthy life, a healthier you. And
Yeah.
I think that everything you're saying, you're already there. So you've already got all this information, but putting it down on paper and allowing other people to benefit from it, it's priceless.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing, the process of it, I think scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it's something I probably should do because it does scare me. That fear excitement, I gotta,
There you go. There you go. You know how to challenge yourself the right way. So I want to thank you so much for being here today. But before we go, will you leave us with a thought for the day?
Thought for the day. Gosh, you prepared me for that. And then now that I've given so many thoughts, I'm like, wait a second. I think my thought for the day, and it's something that I wrote down here, was investing in yourself.
Love
I think you'll never be disappointed if you invest in yourself, and whatever that looks like to you. It could be, taking that new exercise class or starting a new exercise routine, or, up-leveling your health, or taking a meditation course. I took a week-long meditation course for my birthday last year, and it was like, that was the gift I gave to myself. I thought, oh, I could throw a party or I could go out with some friends, but what I really wanted to do was I wanted to learn about transcendental meditation, and so I invested in myself. And I think that's my message. I think that's my message for everybody. Choose you, and you'll never be disappointed.
I love that. That's a great message for not thinking you had one. You did. I thank you so much for being here today. I want everybody to know, if you love this, make sure to pass this on. Make sure to visit Honest Health on all of the places that you go to listen. Of course, go to my YouTube page. Make sure to click subscribe, which is new for me to ask for after so many years on the radio. But remember, we want to make sure that we're bringing you the latest, all good things that have to do with good health and well-being from the inside out. And inside out of the natural products industry, meaning people that are not in the industry but have amazing messages to share, because that's what it's all about. Kimberly, thank you so much for being here today. Will you come back and see me again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm honored that you asked me to come on today, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, you have a lot to say. You have an amazing message. Your passion is so amazingly visible. And I think that the people that have already known about you are happy they do. And the people that are learning about you today are going to be happy they did. So I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Do something good just for you. And don't forget to pass this on to your friends.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.